I became a scumbag who abandoned his wife, remained obsessed with his first love, and couldn't stay faithful. At the family dinner, my first love behind me pursed her lips pitifully. Never mind, Selena, didn't mean to spill juice on me. My parents beside me sneered, calling her a woman unfit for polite society. Friends nearby spoke with malice. Selena Miller used these same tricks before. Does she really think Ethan Jackson would fall for them again? After speaking, a group of people turned to look at me, signaling for me to say something. Meanwhile, I gazed at the girl standing across from me and instinctively greeted her, "Hi, darling." When do you see that Star Your Wish is to protect her at all costs? When I woke up, my mind was in complete disarray, and all I could remember was this sentence. Memories of the original host and the basic circumstances of this world flooded in like a tidal wave. Before I could even process my own situation, my gaze immediately fell upon the girl standing across from me. A dim star hovered above her head, her pale and delicate face devoid of any vitality, looking utterly wretched and pitiful. This was a grand banquet, yet not a single person stood by her side. Everyone had gathered around me, facing her with mocking expressions as they pointed and whispered. The girl beside me tugged at my sleeve, her voice subdued. "Forget it, Ethan. Selena didn't mean that my presence here was inappropriate to begin with. Don't think everything will be smooth sailing just because you married into our Jackson family." The noble woman beside me said with disdain, "Trash that can't even be presented properly. No wonder Ethan looks down on you." Selena Miller used the same tricks back then. A young man with a mocking expression chimed in, "And now you're try pull the same old stunt." After speaking, the group turned to look at me, signaling for me to say something. Still in a daze, I paused for a moment before instinctively greeting the girl, "Hi, sweetheart." The secretive smile on the girl's face behind me froze, and the noblewoman's expression stiffened as well. The young man, Ethan Jackson. "Hey," I snapped out of it, composed my expression, and swiftly took off my suit jacket, draping it gently over Selena Miller's shoulders. "Aren't you cold, darling? The air conditioning here is really cranked up." Selena Miller stared at me in astonishment, her almond-shaped eyes widening in surprise. Ethan, my first love, Isabella, whom I had left behind, looked at me in disbelief, her eyes already reddened. I immediately understood what she meant and comforted her. "Your presence here is indeed inappropriate, but it's good that you recognize your mistake. Just don't show up again in the future." My first love stood rooted to the spot, wanting to run away, but feeling too ashamed, so she could only cover her face and sob quietly. Ethan, Mrs. Jackson gave me a disapproving look. "How could you say that Isabella grew up with you, even if she is no longer part of the Miller family? She is still considered one of ours." "Mom, this isn't appropriate," I said with an awkward expression. Of my age, taking on a godmother would make me seem too old. A stifled laugh escaped someone at the banquet. "Ethan Jackson, my good friend Michael Ford," said, his face burning with anger. "Have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten what Selena Miller did to Isabella? Marrying her was already going above and beyond, and now you want to make Isabella and your mother sad for her sake." "She is the one who went above and beyond by marrying me," I said, having finally processed all my memories, speaking from the heart. "Michael, don't say any more. I admit it. I'm the kind of person who throws everything aside for love." Mrs. Michael Ford Jackson looked like she was about to faint from anger, her eyes rolling back as she collapsed. Isabella quickly caught her, and everyone rushed over in another chaotic scene. No one paid any attention to me anymore. I turned to Selena Miller beside me, my eyes sparkling. "Darling, shall we go home? The star I want to protect is my wife. Could there be anything more fortunate in this world?" Selena Miller paused for a moment, then softly replied, "Oh." She appeared distant toward me, yet didn't remove the coat from her shoulders, following behind me in silence. All along the way, people looked at us with strange expressions, but I paid them no mind. The eldest son of the Jackson family clearly held a high status at home. When I decided to leave, no one dared to stop me, or perhaps they simply couldn't believe I would abandon my unconscious mother and Isabella. "You didn't eat enough tonight, did you?" I took 2 steps back to walk beside her. "Would you like to go out to eat, or should I make something for you at home?" Selena Miller looked somewhat surprised. "You can cook." "Ethan Jackson, of course not, but I can." I lied without batting, and I didn't expect that, did you? She glanced at me again and gave a slight nod. "The stars are so beautiful tonight." I stole glance after glance at her until she couldn't help but ask, "Why are you?" Ethan Jackson and Selena Miller had been married for only a few days, yet this banquet marked merely their second meeting as husband and wife. She knew Ethan Jackson didn't care for her, yet she came to the banquet with perfect propriety. Selena Miller certainly never expected Ethan Jackson would openly show tenderness to another woman at this banquet, while subjecting her to cold mockery. This is a cliched tale of a true and fake socialite. The genuine heiress Selena Miller is the unwelcome outsider, while the counterfeit socialite Isabella is everyone's beloved little princess. Ethan Jackson and Isabella grew up together, and he adored her immensely. Unfortunately, Isabella always kept him at arm's length, effortlessly drifting between various options until the day her true origins came to light. Although the Millers still treated her kindly, they no longer considered her a candidate for a business marriage alliance. From a Miller's perspective, this was a form of protection. They had never wanted Isabella to marry into another wealthy family in the first place. After all, Isabella's attitude had always been ambiguous. She consistently maintained that she only saw Ethan as a brother. The marriage was arranged for the family's sake. Isabella wasn't truly a Miller by blood, being a daughter-in-law of a wealthy family. Wasn't easy either. They'd rather see her marry a man who genuinely loved and cherished her. But from Isabella's perspective, she had always enjoyed the pursuit of heirs from prominent families. The Millers excluding her from the marriage alliance was essentially abandoning her and cutting off her path to wealth and status, wasn't it? The Jackson family's attitude had also become ambiguous. Mrs. Jackson particularly favored Isabella, who had grown up under her watchful eye and excelled at ingratiating herself. However, Mr. Jackson believed marriage alliances must hold value, and Isabella was no longer considered a suitable daughter-in-law for the Jacksons. Isabella panicked, having lost the Miller support. She desperately needed a reliable marriage contract. Unfortunately, marital affairs weren't for them to decide. Ethan Jackson always maintained proper boundaries, insisting on saving his first time for after marriage. She resorted to underhanded tactics, going to great lengths to drug Ethan Jackson in an attempt to create a fait accompli. This way, both the Miller and Jackson families would have no choice but to acknowledge their relationship. Everything went wrong. Unexpectedly, Ethan Jackson grabbed Selena Miller, who happened to be passing by the room on her way to the restroom. Selena Miller was attending such a banquet for the first time. The Millers ignored her, and she was plied with alcohol by ill-intentioned guests until she was completely drunk, stumbling around without any ability to resist. To make matters worse, Selena Miller had also been drugged that day by another wealthy young man who had ulterior motives toward her. By the time she realized something was wrong, it was too late. Her consciousness slipped away, and her body no longer obeyed her. The door was pulled open, revealing a scene of intimate entanglement, followed by waves of piercing screams. Isabella had called witnesses, but in the end they all ended up playing into someone else's hands. Though the Millers and the Jacksons were displeased, the incident had already spread far and wide, with both families needing to collaborate. They had no choice but to proceed with the engagement. Seeing her scheme exposed, Isabella destroyed all evidence to protect her reputation, and the matter was eventually dropped. However, rumors inexplicably began circulating in their social circle that Selena Miller had orchestrated the entire affair herself. It wasn't hard to guess whose handiwork that was. Ethan Jackson had been reluctant about this marriage from the start, and after the wedding, he treated Selena Miller with outright indifference. He only felt that he had lost his chance at love, never realizing the devastating blow this was to Selena Miller. Her adoptive parents deliberately swapped her and never loved her. Her biological parents were indifferent, treating her merely as a pawn they could manipulate. While her marriage was beyond her control, she was the victim, yet she couldn't show resentment, even forced to marry the very person who harmed her. She was intelligent and eager to learn, and attending university was her dream. Yet when she got into a prestigious school, her adoptive parents tore up her admission letter, locked her at home, and forced her to drop out and work. Just when she finally returned to her biological family, they married her off to someone else. She could have had her own life, but in the end she was trapped in a place like the Jackson family. What a cliched and disgusting plot. But it doesn't matter, since it hasn't happened, yet it means there's still a chance to change it. I thought for a moment, then gave her a smile. Of course, it's because you're my star. Of course, it's because you're my wife. She seemed stunned by such straightforward words, her eyes flickering as if unsure how to respond. All right, what should we eat? I opened the fridge, surveying the fresh ingredients with satisfaction. How about I make you a baked rice dish? Whatever you prefer. She hesitated for 2 seconds before saying, I'll do it then. Selena, I gently touched her cold forehead with the back of my hand and said softly, you should go take a shower first or you'll catch a cold. Hearing this, she paused briefly, her expression flickering with subtle emotion. That look somewhere between appraisal and suspicion lasted only an instant. She quickly lowered her eyes again, her voice calm, as she replied, all right. I'm a great cook. During dinner, Selena Miller seemed distracted, but still ate quite a bit. Is it good? I asked her with a smile. You're too thin. You should eat more. Selena Miller nodded. She seemed to have something to say, then paused. Actually, there is something. I had just stood up, but obediently sat back down. I want to enroll in adult university courses. Selena Miller lowered her eyes now that I'm Mrs. Jackson too. Having only a high school education doesn't reflect well on a Jackson family name. The excuse sounded somewhat forced, but I didn't care. I knew perfectly well she genuinely wanted to study. Several years had passed since her college entrance exams, and she'd been diligently self-studying every day, hoping to carve out a bright future once free from her family. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. She was dragged back into the quagmire, never to see daylight again. All right, I said, without hesitation, smiling gently with curved eyes. You can even pursue an on-the-job master's degree later. Seeing my agreement, Selena Miller lifted her head, a flicker of evident joy flashing through her expression, though what showed more clearly was relief. Don't worry about the enrollment process. I couldn't resist reaching out to tousle the little star atop Selena Miller as head through the air. I'll take care of it for you. She had only met me a few times and knew next to nothing about me. That was why she cautiously made such a request. If it were the real Ethan Jackson, he would have refused her without hesitation. What else do you want to do? I couldn't help saying. You can tell me whatever I could do. I'll try my best to help you. Actually, such words somewhat crossed the line for our current relationship, but I simply couldn't contain my emotions. I couldn't wait to let her know that I would stand by her side. Selena Miller looked at me, her dark eyes like a still lake rippling momentarily before regaining their calm. She shook her head. This is enough. Already, thank you. I knew what her greatest wish was, but now wasn't the time. Selena Miller had been staying in our master bedroom, but only because I'd never come back to live here. Now that I'd returned, things would naturally be different. When I first got into bed, Selena Miller was visibly nervous. But when she noticed I remained properly on my side without any other movements until my breathing steadied, her tense body gradually relaxed. The air conditioning was on in the room, maintaining a comfortable temperature in a quiet night. Cicadas chirped softly, and the exhausted girl slowly drifted into sleep. The moment she fell asleep, I opened my eyes and turned my head to look at her. Gently unfolding her clenched hand and smoothing the furrow between her brows, I then got out of bed and stood on the balcony, lowering my head to send a message. There was much to do tomorrow. Softly closing the balcony door, I traced a tiny moon on her cheek through the glass. Good night, Selena. Selena Miller woke the next morning to find me already packing my bags. She froze. Ethan Jackson, what are you doing? Let us elope. I flashed her a sunny smile as we left New York. The girl's eyes grew rounder by degrees from yesterday, until now this was the first time she'd shown such undisguised astonishment. This place is too chaotic. I snapped my backpack shut with a click. You need to study. We should find somewhere quiet. This is my honest truth here. There's the Jacksons, the Millers, people with ill intentions, and those just waiting to see us fail. They were like hyenas sneering at this fragile, slender girl before them, waiting for her to weaken before tearing her apart. It was the malice of an entire world directed at her, and by her side, there was no one. I must stand by her side. Only I will stand by her side. Selena Miller was silent for a long moment. Sensing something, I looked up and saw the girl's face against the light, gazing at me, her expression obscured in the shadows. Soon enough, she tilted her head slightly and asked where to. Anywhere is fine. I said, do you prefer the South or the North? Selena Miller's eyelashes fluttered. The South. I snapped my fingers. Then let us go to Charleston. Selena Miller and I arrived in Charleston quietly, without anyone knowing. As one of the heirs and power holders of the Jackson family, concealing my whereabouts was effortless for me. I ignored the flood of calls and messages, blocked Isabella and everyone from the Jackson family, and even stirred up some minor trouble for the Millers to keep them from constantly watching Selena Miller. The group that came to my house early in the morning only to find it empty was furious and began searching all over New York for Selena Miller and me. Unfortunately, at this moment, we were on a bridge in a small town in Charleston buying local pastries. Perhaps because we were far from the whirlpool, like New York, Selena Miller's expression had relaxed considerably. In the past, though her demeanor was calm, her pale cheeks and overly delicate features always gave her a fragile, solitary appearance. But now, standing beside me, as she softly inquired about the pastry prices, her smiling eyes showed a state completely different from when she was in New York. I rented a small house in the countryside, of course. It wasn't as bustling as New York, no grand commercial streets or endless streams of highways, just a murmuring of flowing water and one small wooden bridge after another. Charleston's Willow Creek town wasn't famous, and no one knew Selena Miller or me. Selena Miller studied at home for her exams, and I worked beside her. She held her books, and I tapped on my keyboard. Neither of us spoke, spending the afternoon like this until the golden sunlight floating on the desk slowly bled into orange red, then gradually darkened. Our neighbors quickly became familiar with us. Mrs. Hannah from next door loved bringing over homemade pastries, and Selena Miller reciprocated by inviting her over for dinner. She could cook, but I usually took the initiative in the kitchen, while one of us washed the vegetables and the other chopped them. Mrs. Hannah would stand in the living room, smiling warmly, saying, "You two make such a lovely couple." Selena Miller would pause for a moment, her eyes meeting mine, brimming with laughter before lowering them slightly. We were newlyweds, after all. She didn't hold too many expectations of me. But because she didn't know me well, once she realized I meant no harm, she was willing to offer me her precious trust. Uncle Sean on the right enjoys calling me out to fish. I'm not skilled, but I have endless patience holding the rod and chatting with Uncle Chun all afternoon without showing the slightest restlessness. Uncle Chin chuckled and shared his catch with me. Without declining, I carried the bucket home, and asked Selena Miller, "Selena, would you prefer fish soup or grilled fish?" Selena Miller looked up at me, the sunlight reflecting in her pitch black pupils revealing a dazed expression. Why, she asked me, "I thought you liked Isabella." Why, I mimicked her tone and asked, "After what I did to you, you're still willing to believe me?" Selena Miller froze. "You were a victim too?" She shook her head. "You were drugged as well." I did have feelings for Isabella before, I said while crouching to clean the fish, "but you're my wife now." They say the eldest son of the Jackson family is a refined, perfect gentleman. Selena Miller remarked, "You are quite different from what I imagined." Am I not gentle and refined? I put on a wounded expression, or am I not gentlemanly enough? She didn't seem to expect me to say that, and couldn't help but curl the corners of her lips. "That's not what I meant." "I'll protect you." I stood up staring at her. Without blinking, "Whatever you want to do, I'll help you." "Is it out of duty or feeling?" She didn't ask further. In the evening, we sat on the rocking chairs in the yard, gazing at the stars. The cool breeze whispered past, and I grew drowsy. Suddenly, I felt a thin garment draped over me. Truthfully, I stopped believing such words long ago. The girl, as cold fingertips brushed lightly against my cheek, lingered for a moment, then slowly withdrew. Her warm breath hovered close, yet she still murmured, "Thank you, though. You are the first person to ever say that to me," she said, her voice growing fainter, "and probably the last, if only." I knew what she wanted to say. If only the beginning hadn't been so wretched. If only we hadn't met the way we did. If only it weren't, because I am Ethan Jackson. 3. We spent 2 undisturbed months in Charleston. Upon returning to New York, the first thing I did was send Selena Miller to take her exam. News of our return to New York spread, and my phone was flooded with calls. First came the Jacksons. Mrs. Jackson was trembling with anger on the phone. "You unfilial son." I calmly expressed my concern, saying, "Take it easy, don't let anger harm your health." "Mrs. Jackson, where have you been these past 2 months?" "I was on my honeymoon, Mrs. Jackson." Before she could finish speaking, Mr. Jackson snatched the phone from her. Mr. Jackson didn't react much. After all, I hadn't delayed official business, and had even led the company to complete several projects. He just hinted around, asking, "I heard you've been busy with Selena Miller's affairs lately. Marital feelings are important, but she's just a woman. After all, don't let her interfere with serious matters." I brush him off with, "Okay, got it, understood." After hanging up, the plastic friend group also came sniffing around upon hearing the news. He asked with some interest if I had truly developed feelings for Selena Miller. Some of Isabella's suitors reproached me for how I could possibly neglect Isabella like this. Michael Ford was even more furious. "You just left Bella in New York for 2 months like that, Ethan Jackson. Are you even human? What is so great about that Selena Miller? Anyway, did she put a spell on you?" I retorted, "If I'm not with my wife, should I be with some other woman instead?" Michael Ford snapped, "Explain yourself. Who exactly is this other woman?" I say, "Anyone who tries to interfere with my marriage will." Michael Ford stiffened. "Bella has been miserable these past 2 months, crying her heart out." "Me, what does that have to do with me?" Michael Ford, "You Ethan Jackson, are you really going to abandon Bella like this?" "Me, what does that have to do with me?" Michael Ford sneered. "Then don't blame me for disregarding our brotherhood. If you want to take care of Bella, I will." I politely responded, "Wishing you eternal happiness." After saying that, I hung up the phone. Even Isabella had called me. In the past, it was always Ethan Jackson who comforted her. This was the first time Ethan Jackson hadn't reached out to her. For so long, she went from initially feeling confident of victory to later being filled with anxiety. And now, when she called me, she was on the verge of tears. "Ethan," she said for a moment. I didn't recognize her voice. "Who is this?" The sobbing on the other end clearly paused for a moment. "It's Bella." Well, my response was indifferent. "Didn't I block you?" Isabella was silent for a moment before asking quietly, "Are you still angry with me?" I had planned to waste words on her, but hearing this piqued my interest. "What exactly do you mean by angry?" "It's my fault for not expressing my feelings sooner." Isabella sounded deeply aggrieved. "I wanted to be with you too, Ethan, but I didn't have the courage. I'm no longer part of the Miller family. So you drugged me instead." I cut her off and then spread rumors that it was Selena Miller who did it. The other end of the line fell into complete silence in an instant. "Ethan, who told you that?" Isabella feigned innocence perfectly, yet her voice carried a faint trace of fear, her tone strained. "How could you believe outsiders? I would never do such a thing." "Did you think I knew nothing?" I smiled. "Some things, if you dare to do them, you must bear the consequences. But I want to be the one to make you pay. Someone else will settle the score with you." Such as the so-called family bond of the Jacksons. The love between Ethan Jackson and Isabella was a fraud, and the friendship between Michael Ford and Ethan Jackson even flimsier than plastic. Bored and utterly disinterested, I blocked them all and chose instead to pick up Selena Miller. She was always busy with countless tasks to attend to every day. Sometimes we have meals together, sometimes not. I never interfered with her whereabouts or asked about them proactively, but I would always take the initiative to pick her up and leave a light on for her at home every night. The Reed family seemed to be facing some troubles recently and hadn't come to bother Selena Miller. The Miller family's business suddenly hit rough waters too. They called me in their flustered state, clearly hoping I'd lend a hand. I verbally agreed, but immediately turned around to help Selena Miller clean up all the traces they had time to erase. All of this was done by Selena Miller. I knew it in my heart. A young girl of 22 couldn't possibly wield such influence on her own, of course. She had quietly leveraged the power of the Jackson family. I didn't interfere with what she did at most. I helped reduce some of the obstacles for her in advance. The Millers had no idea. They were squandering a rare treasure. They didn't understand that genius existed in this world. They didn't remember that Selena Miller had visited the Miller family only once, yet could recognize everyone clearly. They didn't recall that the reason she was invited to that banquet was because she had helped her cousin complete a project. They forgot that she had even worked in the Miller family's company, only to be forced into an early marriage in the end. The Reed family deliberately swapped the children. They didn't care about Selena Miller, and of course wouldn't remember that this girl had been extraordinarily intelligent since childhood, photographic memory, eloquent speech. Even when she deliberately dimmed her brilliance after sensing her family's suppression, she remained outstanding and radiant. She consistently ranked first in exams throughout her school years. Though her performance cooled slightly in high school, she still got into an excellent university through the college entrance exams. During those 2 years when her family forced her to work, she never stopped studying for a single day. Among the friends she made, there were many with both discernment and capability. Yet Selena Miller, isolated and helpless, was ultimately too fragile when facing behemoths like the Miller and Jackson families. That's why my star has dimmed, looking as if it's about to burn out. For I began gradually taking control of the Jackson family's influence, acquiring shares bit by bit. No one noticed this, not even Mr. Jackson. Even if he had noticed, he probably wouldn't have cared much. In his eyes, the family business was far more important. As the heir, I no longer followed Isabella around like a puppy, and he was very pleased with that. During the company's routine meeting, I listened to the report mentioning a company called Vertex Innovations and calmly said, "I understand." After the meeting, the manager followed me into the office. The technology of this company, who knows where it came from? The gap in artificial intelligence is too big domestically. The manager said our market share is being squeezed too. I tapped the tiny robot in my palm and couldn't help but smile, so adorable. The household service robot family companion created a sensation as soon as it hit the market, making waves even in the Jackson household. Mr. Jackson came to me to explain the necessity of obtaining the sales authorization for the family companion. As usual, I brushed him off and drove home in high spirits. I asked Selena Miller if she was coming home for dinner, but she said she had dinner plans outside. When I asked if I could pick her up, she didn't reply to my message. But an hour later, I received a phone call from Selena Miller. The phone line was noisy when a woman's voice came through. "Are you Selena's friend?" I frowned but didn't deny it. "Yes, I am." She's drunk. The woman paused, sounding like she had a headache. "I want to take her home, but she insisted on calling you." "Where are you?" "I started putting on my clothes. I'll come get her." The woman gave an address, but the other end of the line seemed to fall silent for a moment. Then I heard a slightly hurried breath. "Ethan." She sounded heavily drunk. "Ethan Jackson." After the incident of being framed, Selena Miller had sworn off alcohol completely. But today, perhaps, she was just too happy. I inserted the car key. "Hold on, I'll be right there." "Ethan Jackson." She whispered my name, then suddenly smiled. The murmuring voice seemed to be sharing a secret. "Ethan Jackson." "What is wrong?" I couldn't help but lower my voice too. "Are you feeling unwell?" "When will you come pick me up?" She said. "It's the first time someone's coming to get me." I fell silent. My heart felt as if pierced by something sharp. This unfamiliar sensation made me grip the steering wheel tighter, my fingers even going slightly numb. "I'm coming to get you right now. It seems ever since I met her, I keep making promises I'll always come for you from now on." Really, she seems to have come to a quiet place. I can hear a faint echo. "Would you lie to me?" "I would never lie to you." I said. "I swear." "Okay." Her voice was soft. "I believe you." I drove at breakneck speed and arrived at the restaurant in no time. Selena Miller was being supported at the entrance, her eyes misty, but they brightened noticeably the moment she saw me. She was surrounded by a group of people led by a woman with a neat short haircut who wore a peculiar expression. She visibly startled upon seeing me, Mr. Jackson. The crowd behind her also wore varied expressions. I didn't recognize her, but I nodded politely nonetheless and took Selena Miller from them. She seemed utterly intoxicated, her consciousness blurred, yet her drunken demeanor remained impeccable, quietly seated in the passenger seat. When I leaned over to fasten her seatbelt, she showed no reaction, merely lifting her eyes to gaze at me. Her stare was direct, yet hazy, like moonlight filtering through layers of clouds. Throughout the drive, she kept her head tilted, watching me. Her persistent gaze made my ears burn crimson, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her to stop. Instead, I kept my eyes fixed on the road, pretending not to notice her unwavering attention. By the time I helped her out of the car, she was already drowsy, swaying unsteadily on her feet. I picked her up and placed her on the bed. Just as I was about to take off her shoes, she suddenly sat up and said, "I need to bathe." Selena Miller, that me has severe mysophobia. I can't sleep without washing up first. I had no choice but to fill the bathtub with water, then stand guard outside the bathroom door, calling out to her every couple of minutes, afraid she might fall asleep in the tub. She staggered out of the bathroom to brush her teeth, her pajamas hanging loosely on her with buttons still undone. My face instantly flushed crimson as I glanced over, hastily covering my eyes. In flustered panic, "Selena, put your clothes on properly. Your face is so red," she murmured drowsily, leaning in closer with sluggish movements. Her delicate fingers brushed against my forehead as her beautiful face wore a dazed, unfocused expression. "Do you have a fever?" Every inch of my body felt like it was burning up. I couldn't leave her alone in the bathroom, yet couldn't bear to look at her either, forced to fasten her buttons with my eyes tightly shut. "I'm fine." She stood quietly, still allowing me to assist her, but just as I was about to withdraw my hands, she suddenly caught hold of me. I stood frozen in place, unable to move. The girl's fingers were slender and soft, still warm from her bath, gently pressing against my palm. "Ethan Jackson." I responded vaguely. "What is it?" "You're helping me." Her nimble fingers slipped between mine, interlacing our hands, as if playing a game. "I know, it's you who's helping me." Her gaze was clouded, misty with emotion. "Only you would help me." We stood face to face, the girl slightly tilting her head up, her long jet black soft hair, dampened by moisture, cascaded over her pale, pristine shoulders, beautiful and pure. I didn't dare look at her. "I didn't help you with anything." "Do you know what I'm doing?" She took a step closer like a child who must have an answer. "Stubborn, yet innocent Ethan Jackson, do you know what I'm doing?" I know. Dizzy and flustered, I stumbled back a step, only to be pressed against the door by her. "Selena, it's time to sleep." Her other hand rested on my shoulder as she stood on tiptoe, pressing her soft lips to my ear. "Why are you so good to me?" I felt like I'd never experienced such an awkward situation before, afraid to push her lest she fall. My hands didn't know where to rest my eyes, didn't know where to look without feeling guilty. I could only close them. "Because you're Selena Miller." Her voice suddenly vanished. When I opened my eyes in concern, I saw the girl's gaze fixed intently on my face, as if carrying some emotion bright enough to burn herself, something that had been suppressed beneath calm, still water eyes, but now suddenly boiled over, flickering like shards of gold skipping across a lake. Those dark, always placid eyes overflowed with my reflection. A moment later, she kissed me. My mind went blank. When I came to my senses, I held her wrist and gently pushed her away. My Adam's apple moved as I tried to speak, but my throat was so dry it felt like it was about to smoke. She seemed to have exhausted all her strength, leaning against my shoulder. I heard her voice, both bewildered and aggrieved, pitifully asking me why. Why didn't he know what she was asking? I could only weakly press against her shoulder, feeling the palm that touched her gradually grow hot. "Selena," I racked my brains, not wanting to disappoint her. "You're drunk. Let us go to sleep." "Do you like me?" she persisted, usually composed, as if some strange switch had been flipped, wrapping her arms around my waist and softly whispering in my ear. "Ethan Jackson, is it because you like me?" "I like you." My mind went blank as I woodenly replied, "I like you very much. Very, especially, exceedingly, every day. I like you more than the day before." Why, I honestly don't know. "Because you are a star." "Star," she murmured, "but there are so many stars." I reached out to her because she was the star I needed to protect. "But you're the star of the entire world," I said, lowering my gaze to her, my ears turning red, just my own moon. "I like you because you're Selena Miller. You are my one and only moon." When Selena Miller woke up, I was already in the kitchen making breakfast. She stood silently behind me. "Ethan Jackson." I turned my head and noticed her cheeks were slightly pale with a faint trace of irritation between her brows. I pretended not to know anything. "I made sandwiches today." Last night her voice sounded hoarse. "I was drunk." "I know." I said, "Next time you want a drink, you can tell me in advance. I'll come pick you up." I think I said a lot of strange things. She rubbed her temples as if testing the waters, or just casually mentioning it. "Do you remember?" How should I respond to this? I averted my gaze. Truth be told, I said plenty of strange things myself. She froze momentarily before Selena Miller lowered her eyes. "You know what I'm doing." I know. I hurried to explain. I didn't mean to investigate. It was just something my subordinates discovered. "Ethan Jackson," she cut me off, "you knew what I was doing, and you still helped me. Those obstacles that were inadvertently swept away, those approval processes that should have stalled, that information which was never leaked, meant for protection." She was such a clever girl. Of course, she knew that so-called wishful thinking was never as simple as partners imagined. I look in her eyes. "Even if I don't help you, you'll still succeed." This is the truth. She didn't like to talk, appearing fragile and quiet, enduring silently. Yet when faced with such terrible circumstances, she didn't break down, finding resistance futile. She temporarily accepted reality. Discovering her torn admission letter was like this. Realizing her identity had been deliberately swapped was like this. Being forced by the original male lead was like this. And getting married was also like this. I knew full well her brief surrender wasn't true surrender. It was merely a tactic to feign weakness. The most cunning hunters wear harmless facades. Beneath those docile eyes lurked icy detachment. She was biding her time, waiting for the day she could tear apart everyone who had trampled on her. In the chapters that followed, she was suppressed and humiliated. None of her so-called family loved her. The man who married her, Ethan Jackson, would confine her to the Jackson estate, forbidding her from working, forbidding her from leaving. Close partners would be effortlessly crushed and then leave her one by one. After all, when one's voice carries little weight, how could the Jacksons and the Millers possibly stand by and watch their market share being taken over? Ethan Jackson, in another bout of post-marital melancholy, would mistake her for Isabella and treat her roughly. Then Selena Miller would become pregnant, controlled entirely by the Jacksons, and the Miller, Selena Miller, was as if deprived of all five senses, unable to see, unable to hear, even denied the right to abort the child. She was kept like livestock, suffering unbearably as she gave birth to the child. The child was taken away by the Jacksons to be raised, while Selena Miller was ruthlessly discarded by Ethan Jackson, who by then had seized complete control of the Jackson family. A life that can be seen at a glance would only end with Isabella living happily ever after, while Selena Miller would be left alone and desolate. Yet against all odds, the ending of this tale of true and false socialites crumbled beyond recognition. Every novel is a world of its own. In this story, the protagonists are Ethan Jackson and Isabella, yet in such a chaotic and disordered world a star was born. Stars are bright and dazzling beings. They emerge as destined, unshackled by any rules or constraints. Not because she was favored by fate to become a star, but because the star was destined to grow into someone who transcends fate. Even Selena Miller, a star on the verge of fading, is still a star. So she could never give up, she would never yield. If she truly gave up now, she wouldn't be a star anymore. When Selena Miller reappeared after vanishing from sight, she had already become a rising star in the tech business world, holding a high position and stopping at nothing to achieve her goals. She methodically uncovered vulnerabilities in both the Jackson and Miller family businesses. First, she set traps to gradually drive both companies into bankruptcy, then reported all the key figures in both families for tax evasion. With calculated precision, she led the Reed couple into gambling addiction, teaching them to use the child swapping incident to blackmail Isabella into extorting increasing sums of money from Ethan Jackson, ultimately tearing the family apart and turning them against each other. Those who had drugged her, Isabella, who had drugged Ethan Jackson, and the Reed couple who had maliciously swapped the children, all were found with irrefutable evidence and ended up behind bars. Including Ethan Jackson, she looked down at the terrified man across from her with a scornful smile. You lose. 10 years had passed since then, yet the world had ultimately not followed its predetermined course. Because Selena Miller, who had fallen into the mud, crawled out of the abyss covered in blood, and without hesitation, she pierced her enemy's heart. But she had long since lost all human emotion, watching the child she bore after being raped being sent to an orphanage glaring at her with hatred, before leaving the expressionless Selena Miller suddenly found it all meaningless. In this dull world, it seems that as long as you hold a high position, you can do anything. How boring. Selena Miller watched the execution of those who had once oppressed her. The demons that had haunted her nightmares for 10 years were now trembling in fear. She lowered her eyes and suddenly realized that all that fear wasn't such a big deal after all. It was truly too boring. The world plunged into darkness with the fall of a star utterly destroyed. This is the end of the story. A star cannot be killed unless she herself wishes to fade. She closed her eyes, choosing to bid the world farewell without a word. But the extinguishing of stars signifies the end of the world, so I was sent by the god from another distant space, because they discovered that I, separated by hundreds of millions of light years, had developed a subtle resonance with her frequency. The original Ethan Jackson, as one of the culprits behind the star's extinction, was sent elsewhere to reflect on his actions and start anew. And I took his place, because only the identity of the male lead could alter the predetermined fate. That star is about to fade. You must protect her. This is my duty, my mission. Even if I intend to strike at the Jackson, Selena Miller rarely shows such a sharp edge in front of me. Her expression cold, her voice calm. Do you also believe I'll succeed? What kind of existence is the Jackson family? A corporation corroded and teetering on the brink, in the future a place with twisted family dynamics that has oppressed countless ordinary people. A towering edifice collapsing overnight. Perhaps the original Ethan Jackson would have cared, but I couldn't care less. You already know my answer. I looked at her and said matter-of-factly, you will definitely succeed. Sometimes I wonder. She paused for a few seconds. What exactly do you want from me? I originally thought ours was a mutually beneficial relationship. I leveraged the Jackson family's influence to do what I wanted. I gained many things through your connection, Selena Miller said, but I don't understand. What could you possibly get from me? Using my name to provoke Isabella, reducing many troubles, drawing closer to the Miller family's relations, or even satisfying certain physical needs. She said, I've imagined so many possibilities, but it seems you don't want anything at all. I like you. I interrupted her. Selena Miller froze in place, her clear eyes widening slightly as she stared at me, her beautiful face blank. I asked somewhat awkwardly in return, can it just be because I simply like you? She was stunned. I really like you, I said, earnestly looking at her. Even though my cheeks burned, my words grew smoother and more resolute, practically ringing with conviction. And don't you realize, yet I lose all sense when I fall in love. Selena Miller's fair earlobes gradually flushed pink, strikingly vivid against her jet black hair. She parted her lips slightly, then seemed at a loss for words, lowering her gaze as her long lashes fluttered like butterfly wings. So beautiful, I thought dizzily since when had it begun. When I first arrived here, I knew nothing protecting the stars was my mission. But the moment I fell for her, I understood everything. What does it mean when two stars light years apart resonate? I once asked the gods of the cosmos. That pair of siblings gently told me, you will illuminate each other. I saw in countless dim worlds two stars drawn to one another, suddenly brightening each other. I also saw the two stars they've been closely observing lately, Arthur King and Eve Green, the first thing they're called. I don't remember my origins, but I likely came from some desolate planet. I only recall that one day, when I was on the verge of death, I suddenly saw another star at the edge of the universe. With all my strength, I struggled toward her. She was the only light I could grasp. Why do you like me? Selena Miller asked the exact same question as last night. I don't think there's anything special about me. Since when does liking someone need so many reasons? I gave her a vivid analogy. You know what, the first time I saw you, it felt like boom, the moon had fallen right into my arms. She was resilient, strong, pure, and radiant, even though she never received any love from the world from beginning to end. After disappointment, she chose self-destruction. The world that was utterly terrible to her might appear equally beautiful in others' eyes. That's exactly what she thought. One day, I inexplicably understood her perspective. And from that day onward, I also realized favoring the moon was my destiny. 6 Vertex Innovation was developing at an increasingly rapid pace, especially in their current research direction, clearly targeting the Millers. The Millers could no longer sit still. Mr. Miller came to see me first, earnestly asking how my marital relationship was lately. I brushed him off with a few vague words, but Mr. Miller remained preoccupied and reluctantly pressed on asking if I knew where Selena Miller had been recently. A pause, then politely showed him the door. The rumors about Vertex Innovation grew increasingly outlandish as one of its founders, Selena Miller's occasional public appearances had become a necessity. Even if no one knew she was the largest shareholder of Vertex Innovations, whispers gradually began to circulate about Selena Miller, the daughter of the Miller family, and her connection to Vertex Innovations. Especially the collaborative licensing company Vertex Innovations. Every time, it's the genesis from the Jackson family. Mr. Jackson also learned of this matter between the increasingly decadent Miller family and the thriving Vertex Innovations. He chose Vertex Innovations and pretended not to know that Selena Miller was targeting the Miller family. He even came to give me a hint. Ethan, since Selena is involved in Vertex Innovation, as her husband, you can also help her handle Vertex Innovation's affairs. After all, we're all family. It means using my identity as Selena Miller's husband to take over Vertex Innovations. I said yes, but then immediately redirected all of Jackson family's resources to Vertex Innovations. The day Selena Miller returned to the Miller household, no one dared to stop her. The Miller family's acquisition by Selena Miller's Vertex Innovations became common knowledge. The haggard Isabella stared at her with a pallid face. Mrs. Miller looked somewhat indignant, but Mr. Miller, who had bowed his head first, held her back and said with unusual humility, Selena, from now on our family's company will be entrusted to you. The man who had once ordered Selena Miller to marry me wore an expression of unwillingness and fear, regret, and anger. He questioned Isabella in disappointment. I meticulously groomed you since childhood, yet all you've learned is how to seduce men. Do you possess even half of Selena's worth? The highly favored fake daughter secretly transferred assets to the Reed family, while the discarded true daughter trampled her underfoot in just 3 years. The Miller family finally faced the truth. Selena Miller, whom they had abandoned and ignored, was a genius capable of repeatedly breaking through domestic technological barriers. Was originally the hope that could have easily propelled the Miller family to the pinnacle. And they personally crushed this hope. Selena Miller watched the farce before her. Without speaking, it was still the same delicate, fragile face, still the same quiet and unassuming demeanor. But with just one glance from her, there was already the oppressive aura of someone in power. Amidst the turbulent upheaval in New York, the only family that emerged unscathed was the Jacksons, now firmly under my control. I have little interest in pursuing a career when I suggested to Mr. Jackson that we might as well hand over the Jackson family's assets to Selena Miller outright. He flew into a rage and called me an unfilial son. Mrs. Jackson rolled her eyes so hard she nearly fainted on the spot. I slipped away before she could faint that evening. When I went to pick up Selena Miller, I asked her, I don't want to work hard anymore. Can I rely on you to support me? Her eyes sparkled as she looked at me. Then she burst into laughter, revealing a rare glimpse of youthful vivacity. Then she said, all right. The Reed family's scandal of maliciously swapping children caused a huge uproar in their social circle. Isabella was driven out of the Miller household. Having gathered sufficient evidence, Selena Miller reported them without hesitation before they were imprisoned. Isabella came to plead with Selena, crying pitifully, "Selena, I beg you, after all they raised you for so many years." Beside them, Michael Ford wore a complicated expression, his gaze toward Isabella no longer filled with the love it once held. His affection for Isabella had been partly due to the Miller family's influence behind her. Now that the Millers had fallen and Isabella's reputation was ruined, Michael, who had once wanted to play the hero, was repeatedly warned by his family. His initial resolve to stand up for her had long since faded. Selena Miller simply looked at her calmly, then uttered the name of a drug. Isabella's crying suddenly stopped as her expression dramatically changed. "As far as I know, this drug is a controlled substance. I've checked all the sales channels across New York." Selena Miller then revealed another name, the biggest supplier, and a connection in Mexico. "Crime doesn't pay," she said. The Reed family rose to prominence very quickly these past few years. Miss Isabella claims to have embezzled funds, but their S1 account, that just one T balance. You should know if someone gets involved with that kind of thing, it's not something my words can change. Pale-faced, Isabella turned and staggered away. "Do you think I'm being too heartless?" Selena Miller said. "Actually, I never intended to pursue those matters any further. You're the one who was hurt." I looked at her. "Selena, it's your right to seek justice." She asked softly, "Are you Ethan Jackson?" She was such a clever person, it was only natural she'd be found out. What is more, I never thought about hiding it. After some thought, I asked very seriously, "If I said no, would you turn me over to the government?" She laughed at my question. "What if I did?" "Then make sure to report me under your real name," I said with a smile, looking at her nonchalantly. "Who knows, they might discover something groundbreaking and award you a medal." She stared at me blankly, her clear black and white eyes gradually filling with sparkling emotion. Then she smiled to her soft fingertips, gently squeezing my palm. Selena Miller didn't tea like drinking, but because of work she occasionally had to. I would always go pick her up. Her business partners went from being shocked at first to finding it strange later, and now they've grown accustomed to it. Once again, I supported her shoulders as we headed home, skillfully standing by the bathroom door to squeeze toothpaste on her brush for her. Suddenly warmth spread around my waist. Looking in the mirror, I saw Selena Miller with cheeks slightly flushed from alcohol, clinging to my back like a koala, her pale arms wrapped around my waist as she stood on tiptoe and stickily whispered in my ear, "Ethan Jackson." She deliberately lowered her voice, soft and gentle. My ears turned red again. Pressing my lips together, I pulled her down and said patiently, "Selena, brush your teeth." Her eyes were misty. When did you come?" "The day you came to Jackson's." I said. "Stop laughing and brush your teeth." "What is your name?" Then she asked while brushing her teeth, looking at me with toothpaste foam on the tip of her nose, an unusually adorable look, completely different from her usual self. Am I the first person to know the secret? And the only one. I wiped the foam off her nose. "I don't know what my name is either. It should probably be Ethan Jackson." "Will you?" And carrying the drowsy Selena Miller to bed, she was already half asleep, but still persistently asked me, "Will you leave?" I was about to say I wouldn't when I heard her murmur softly, "If the original Ethan Jackson comes back, I'll." "What would you do then?" I was somewhat curious as I tucked her in and asked. "I'd kill him." The girl nuzzled her pillow, her drowsy tone suddenly turning resolute. "In that moment, freeze the body, wait for you to return." "I want leave." "So you mustn't fade away. Either I'll stay in your world." I turned off the light and blew a gentle kiss toward her hair from across the room. "So let us make this world better together. This place was once covered in mud and shrouded in darkness, but if it were you, you could probably illuminate the entire world. Just as you illuminated my world on the day." Selena Miller, CEO of Vertex Innovations, participated in the selection of the nation's top 10 outstanding young entrepreneurs. I stood at the door waiting for her. On television, she was radiant, dressed in a crisp suit, dazzling to the point of being blinding. Sunlight fell upon her head, shimmering in her pitch-black eyes, on her long lashes at the corners of her upturned lips. She stood in the sunlight as if favored by the light itself. I watched her walk step by step toward me, lower her eyes, and say gently, "Selena, let us get divorced. I know this is your wish, the hurdle. You can't overcome the decision you've hesitated to make. Why? Because I will stand unconditionally by your side. When you no longer need the Jackson family, when you want to settle scores with those who forced you into this marriage with me, when you realize that no matter how well I treat you, it can never erase the sordid origins of this union. When you become powerful enough, our marriage will be like the last stain beneath your feet." Isabella was imprisoned for involvement in illegal drug trafficking. The man who drugged Selena Miller was also caught red-handed with the evidence. The marriage between Selena Miller, chairwoman of Vertex Innovations, and Ethan Jackson, chairman of Genesis Group, from the Jackson family, has officially ended in divorce. I stepped down as chairman of Genesis, handing over the thoroughly cleansed company to the successor. I had always favored, of course, the successor, was a staunch supporter of Vertex Innovation. After all, Vertex Innovation, as the largest AI company on the market, not only unconditionally licensed many of its inventions to the government, but also promoted numerous affordable products that improved lives, earning excellent public reputation. From now on, the identity of Ethan Jackson, the young master of the Jackson family, would be completely severed from Selena Miller. Those messy, melodramatic emotions belonging to Isabella Michael Ford, Ethan Jackson, and others should never taint Selena Miller in the slightest. Her life was destined to be bright and brilliant. Marrying Ethan Jackson was a mistake from the very beginning. Willow Creek Town. I returned to Willow Creek Town. I had bought that mansion long before I left Mrs. Hannah. And Uncle Chun hadn't left either, and they were happy to see me back. They only asked why they hadn't seen Selena Miller. Her flight is tonight. She should be arriving soon. I blinked. She has been too busy with work. It took me a lot of effort to secure this honeymoon opportunity. The story of Ethan Jackson, the young master of the Jackson family, and Selena Miller has ended, but my story with Selena Miller is far from over. Although Selena Miller had no intention of remarrying, she told me herself that I could rely on her support until the end of my life. After the divorce, can I pursue you again? I asked pitifully. I mean it. I like you. She interrupted me. It was the first time she had ever admitted it to me herself, the first time she said those words to me. Ethan Jackson, she repeated, I like you. My entire face flushed crimson, and it took me ages to stammer out a complete sentence, I like you too. Don't think everything will be smooth sailing. Just because you married into our Jackson family, the noble woman beside me said with disdain, trash that can't even be presented properly. No wonder Ethan looks down on you. Very much, extraordinarily, exceedingly, every single day, I find myself loving you more than the day before. Why did you come into this world? So that this world could have someone who stand by your side unconditionally. You're the stars that light up the whole world, but you're solely my moon. When I picked up Selena Miller at the airport, I asked her, can I call you that openly now? She blinked. What, hi, wife? I said, wife. The first time I called her, that I was actually quite nervous inside. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. This is the first thing you've ever said to me. From that moment on, my world was bathed in the rising sun, bright and radiant. The end.